In this video, I'm going to talk to you about growing up with Asperger Syndrome and what that was kind of like from school to friends to family. Coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Aspie world. I'm Dan. I have Asperger Syndrome, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia. I make weekly videos on the subject, so consider subscribing to learn more about autism and Asperger's. So, the Twinkie. This is such an awesome golden delicious treat. It's something that is like my vice. It actually went out of business recently in the past couple of years, but then it came back as this awesome golden delicious cake. This is like my favorite thing to eat. I eat super healthy pretty much all the time. I eat organic food, I'm a vegetarian, don't have caffeine or sugar or anything, but a Twinkie is everything for me. And I guess we all have to have vices, and if you have like an autism spectrum condition, you know, you're gonna be really into something, and it's something that you're just gonna love and you're gonna want to have it all the time. For me, that's Twinkies. Just want to let you guys know that this video is sponsored by Wondershare and their Fotophire editing tool for editing photos. It's super awesome. The links are in the description below to download it, and you can also edit things like you can edit the background out of the pictures. You can also clone parts of the background to say the background's nice but there's somebody in the background. You can actually edit that out and paste over it with a similar pattern as long as the background is patterned. You can also crop the images to make them different sizes. You can blow up and enlarge the images without losing any quality. I highly recommend checking out this tool. I've been using it for things like editing photos that I've taken when I was in LA, and it's really cool, so please check that out and that'll be super awesome. Okay, so I said this video was going to be about growing up with Asperger Syndrome and having Asperger Syndrome whilst growing up, and I found this would be a really interesting video for anybody who may be a parent or want to know how their kid is getting on in school and life and family and all this kind of stuff, and it may just be interesting for anybody who is on the spectrum and maybe want to relate to somebody else who you know, has grown up with the condition. So I just wanted to start off, and I'm going to talk about siblings, then I'm going to talk about primary school life, then I'm going to talk about secondary school life, I'm going to talk about friends and relationships, and then I will just talk about maybe like the future kind of goals and the future aspects and what the future holds. So, siblings. I have a brother and a sister. None of them were diagnosed with a spectrum condition. My brother actually had 3 thumbs when he was born. And my sister was born atopic, which means she had like asthma, eczema, allergic conjunctivitis, everything you can think of that was related to any kind of allergy you can think of. So we had an interesting kind of childhood upbringing, and the house was quite interesting with a variant of kids in there. It's difficult when you're growing up with siblings because if you're the only person on the spectrum in the house, then you're kind of isolated and you'll feel that isolation, you'll feel kind of detached from the other people. So growing up I had like extreme social anxiety, so I couldn't like go outside to play with other like kids. I couldn't go to like the park with my brothers and sisters because I was like just too anxious to like step outside the house or the door. So instead I used to stay indoors and like watch like films, movies, documentaries on like aliens and like NASA and spaceships and stuff like that, and like play with Lego. But these were like super nerdy things, and my brother and sister weren't really into that because like my brother was into like performing arts, my sister was just into just being a girl and just hanging out. So those things kind of like they clashed, so I didn't really have that like that relationship with like my siblings growing up because they didn't understand me, I didn't understand them. It was quite difficult, and I feel like it was like one of those things where our relationship was better when we were adults, when we were able to understand things more and we were able to kind of relate to each other a bit more, because obviously having a diagnosis later on in life, they were able to understand where I'm coming from and why I did certain things, and that I wasn't a complete weirdo in the household, and they were kind of cool with it. But it was interesting, and it was, I don't know, it was like being all by yourself in a crowded room. It was bizarre. So you had like siblings, but you couldn't really relate to them, you wouldn't be able to play with them and do all those things. But we used to go on family holidays and stuff and outings together, but that, you know, it was okay. So primary school life, and primary school for anybody in America, this is actually called preschool, and primary school here in the UK is before you get to secondary school, like before you get to high school. And primary school was an awful struggle. It was kind of one of those experiences I had when, you know, you start off and you're anxious anyway, so you're going to go to a place that you're super anxious for. You don't get along with any of the kids. You're like on an isolated desk because you're part of like the special education program. You've got a one-to-one to help you with extra reading because obviously you're dyslexic as well. And it was very difficult because at like break time all the kids would go outside and they'd have playtime, and then at playtime I couldn't go outside and be with the other kids. I was just too anxious, so they allowed me to stay indoors and play on the computers and learn things about like encyclopedias and things like that, which was super, super awesome. I enjoyed it, but then obviously going back to the class, it was weird. I had to stay in a room with a bunch of kids that you really didn't get on with, who were unpredictable. It was crazy. Then you had to wear a school uniform, which I didn't like because I didn't like the material. It was just too harsh on me. It was like sensory triggering. So I just basically spent my entire primary school life really miserable. There was another time in primary school, like I remember specifically, like they used to take the kids to like swimming lessons. So they'd go all out of the school onto a bus. The bus would then drive across town. It would go to the sports centre, leisure centre, to go to swimming and have swimming classes. Now, this was just an ordeal. I mean, the bus travel alone would cause me to have like, it's just a complete and utter shutdown. I just wouldn't know what to do. So the teachers used to just leave me in the classroom on my own, unsupervised, but I didn't have to go on these like small kind of inter-class trips, which was crazy because, like, you know, I mean, now they wouldn't be able to do it, but it was like the 90s, so they probably just didn't care. But the interesting thing about it was that the school didn't know what to do, and there was no help available back then. And of course, in the 90s, there was no real help available for people with autism spectrum conditions, and let alone getting diagnosis back then or having adequate support at that time. But it was okay. It felt like I was there forever. It felt like I was in primary school for like forever. And coming out of primary school was very much a relief because, I don't know, it was just, not torture, but it wasn't a nice experience to be fair. Okay, so secondary school. Secondary school was interesting. Secondary school was where I was able to be a bit more myself. I was, you know, a teenager in the 90s, listening to like, you know, Blink-182. I was really interested in skateboarding and this whole idea, this culture of being a teenager. And I actually went to the library and rented a book that kind of showed you how to be a teenager. It was really, really cool. So it had like how to dress, what kind of things, you know, you need a backpack with all your gear in it. Baggy jeans because it was the 90s, a chain with your wallet attached to it, which I still have now, a hat because like hats are like super awesome, skateboard because how are you going to get around if you don't have a skateboard, and it was really cool. And this book, this image in this book is what I kind of like based my life on as to being a teenager. Now, being a teenager was better, but in high school the teachers kind of put you into different sets, and I was put into like the special ed set for certain things because they didn't know how I was going to learn. They didn't know my learning type. They didn't know what classes I should be in, what sets I should be in, you know, how well I'm going to do, because they didn't know my learning type. So that was a bit annoying. I did have extra additional classes like one-to-one classes, but they were very limited because the resources weren't there, and I guess the funding wasn't there either. But the coolest thing that happened in high school is that I met people who would play music, and then I was really interested in music, and my brain kind of clicked into this music idea, and then I started to learn how to play different instruments and play music. So I was able to play music regardless, you know, at break times, at lunch times, when I got home from school, before school, I was able to learn to play bass guitar and drums and things like that. And so that kind of helped ease the fact that I was in, again, a classroom full of kids in clothes that I don't like wearing for a long period of time. But one of the major breakthroughs is that we moved, my family moved house actually back to back with the high school just before I started high school. So the interesting thing was that when I started high school, I didn't need chaperoning to and from school, because up until, you know, the whole time I was in school, I needed chaperoning. My parents had to be with me, had to pick me up, and I had a couple of meltdowns when they were like in the wrong place after I'd finished, you know, primary school and stuff, and I come outside and the bell rang and they're not there, and it was just crazy. So one of the things that was amazing and like a breakthrough for me was that I was able to just walk out of my house, walk like 20 feet, and I'd be inside the school grounds, which is amazing. So it was like our house backed up onto the school wall, which I found just fascinating. That kind of completely changed my relationship of giving me confidence. That was like something I always remember. But secondary school is okay. The problem with it is that because they didn't understand my learning type, I didn't get the education that I needed, I didn't get the outreach that I needed, I didn't get the support that I needed, and for that I don't think I left with the qualifications which I should have got if I had given the chance, or I had the ability to be with somebody who understands my learning type. Okay, so friends. I made friends with people in primary school who were a bit quirky, so they were into like World of Warcraft kind of stuff and Warhammer, and you know, I made friends with those people because they were into like nerdy kind of stuff that I was into, but I couldn't really go around to the houses and stay because I was so like upset about going to somebody else's house to stay. I was always getting really anxious about going to somebody else's house to play because I didn't have my things with me, I didn't know the surroundings. This was very unnerving for me, and it happened a couple of times where I had to go and stay in friends' houses because my parents were like sick or whatever, they had to, you know, whatever the reason was, and it was horrible. I felt this kind of like emptiness and this cold kind of like aloneness for doing that. Even though you were like your best buddies, I felt like alone. Then in secondary school, having friends, I was able to make friends with the people who were playing music because they played music, and I was like, wow, these guys are just super cool. So I made friends with these guys that played music, and then they taught me a little bit of how to play like 2 or 3 chords on the guitar, and that was it. I was just lighting a spark, you know, just like boom, like chain reaction. I wanted to do it all the time. And so I have always been friends with the musicians and the creators because those are the people who sparked interest in me. And how I made those friends was that I just was in that group. I wanted to play music, so I made myself in that availability, because even though it was like gave me super anxiety, I was very anxious to do these things and maybe very shy, I forced myself to do it because I wanted to do it, because I wanted to have access to music and I wanted to learn about music because I love learning. So making friends is easy when you have people you can relate to. I find that was like the key to making friends. And you know, I still have those friends growing up right now. I'm still friends with the same people who I played music with. I'm actually in a band with them, and if you want to check out our band, we're called Straight Jacket Legends. We've got a CD out in Japan, America, and we're on iTunes and stuff. I'll leave a link down below so you guys can check out the band. But yeah, those guys are rock solid. It's awesome. Okay, so the future. What does the future hold? So like growing up, like I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. And obviously when you're growing up with an autism spectrum condition and you feel kind of at a loss sometimes, you probably all felt like, oh, I'm at a loss. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know like if I'm going to get a job, how I'm going to keep friends or keep all these things down. Everything will kind of work out in a way, but you have to stay focused on your goals and the things that you admire most in life. So I love making videos, I love making content for YouTube, I love making music, I love making social media content, and I love doing talks on the subject of autism and Asperger's and trying to get people super stoked about being alive. And I think that's amazing. So growing up, it molds you into who you are going to become and who you'll always try and become. You're always striving to be a better person or be the person that you're going to become, and I think that's amazing. So let me know what your experience is like with school and high school and stuff, because I'm really interested in finding out.